Chapter 1. The Cry That Tore Through the Stars. On the far-flung edges of the Andromeda sector, beyond the navigational charts of the Coalition's most seasoned pilots, lay the desolate and forbidding planet Viridra 9. It was a world lost to the memory of time, its surface scarred by ancient tectonic upheavals and the silent testimony of civilizations that had risen and fallen in millennia past. The atmosphere was thin, laden with traces of rare gases that gave the hazy sky a perpetual twilight glow, as if the world itself lingered in a state of suspended dusk. This was not a place of warmth or comfort, but a harsh crucible where survival demanded an iron will and a desperate clutch on fleeting hope. Kaylee, the alien woman, found herself ensnared in this brutal landscape, her slender form hunched beneath the skeletal remains of a giant metallic arch once a monument to a forgotten empire, now twisted and corroded by centuries of neglect. Her skin, a pale, shimmering blue, flickered faintly in the dim light, a subtle bioluminescence that marked her as a member of the Dravari people, renowned across several systems for their ethereal beauty and psychic sensitivity. But no grace adorned Kaylee's current state. Dirt smeared her cheeks, bruises marred her arms, and her eyes, vast and luminescent, were glazed with exhaustion and desperation. Clutched tightly to her chest was Zaire, her infant son, whose cries ripped through the barren wasteland like a banshee's wail. It was a cry of pure distress, a raw and primal sound that tore at the fabric of the silent world. The baby's mouth opened wide, tears streaking down his translucent cheeks, his small fists punching weakly at the empty air. Zaire's cries were not just hunger or discomfort. They were a call to something deeper, an instinctive plea for protection, for safety, for a savior who had not yet come. For hours, Kaylee had rocked him endlessly, whispered lullabies in the ancient Dravari tongue, and even sang to him with a voice cracked from dehydration, but nothing stilled the relentless barrage of sound. Around them, the planet seemed indifferent. Jagged cliffs rose on the horizon like frozen waves, blackened by the last fires of volcanic eruptions long ago extinguished. Dust devils twisted along the cracked ground, carrying faint sparks of iridescent sand that shimmered like starlight caught in a prism. The chill air gnawed at Kaylee's exposed skin, and she pulled her worn cloak tighter, shielding Zaire's fragile form from the biting cold. Yet, despite the harshness, it was the silence that weighed heaviest, a silence that mocked her pleas, that answered the infant's wails with emptiness and despair. Kaylee's mind raced with frantic thoughts. The mercenaries who had hunted her down were still out there, somewhere in the wasteland, their ruthless orders to retrieve her alive or dead echoing in her ears. She had escaped them only by sheer luck and cunning, but the cost had been high. Her supply ship was destroyed, her communications severed, and now she was alone with her child on a world no one came to. Her position was perilous, every breath a battle, every heartbeat a defiance of the void closing in around them. As she sat beneath the arch, the baby's cries escalating in intensity, a strange sensation prickled along Kaylee's skin, something electric, charged with anticipation. She looked up, eyes narrowing toward the horizon where the bleak landscape met the faint glow of the distant star. There, moving steadily through the dusty haze, was a figure, a human man, tall and purposeful, with an unfamiliar gait that seemed to defy the terrain. His silhouette was unmistakable, his posture calm yet confident, unhurried but inexorably drawing nearer. To Kaylee, this stranger was both a mystery and a beacon of impossible hope in a place forsaken. The baby's cries tore through the air again, urgent and frenzied, but as the man drew closer, something inexplicable happened. Zaire's wide, tear-filled eyes locked onto the figure, and his frantic wails faltered. His trembling limbs relaxed, his fists unclenched, and with a shuddering breath that seemed to echo across the barren plains, the baby fell silent. The silence was profound, a sudden stillness that sucked the very sound from the world. Kaylee stared in disbelief as her child gazed steadily at the approaching human, eyes shining with an unspoken recognition that defied explanation. Time seemed to pause. The wind held its breath. Even the dust devils stilled, as if the planet itself acknowledged the significance of the moment. The human, now only a few meters away, met Kaylee's gaze with eyes that burned not with judgment, but with something deeper: compassion, resolve, and a promise of salvation. Slowly, he knelt down, careful and deliberate, his hands extended in peace. "I'm here to help," he said, his voice steady and low, cutting through the stillness like a lifeline. Kaylee's heart pounded fiercely. She did not understand this man, nor why her child's cries had ceased at his arrival, but instinct told her to trust him. Desperation quelled her fear as she extended her arms, offering Zaire into the stranger's care. The human lifted the infant gently, cradling him as if he too felt the fragile weight of a universe's hope resting in that tiny body. The moment was fragile and sacred. The alien mother and the human stranger, two beings from worlds apart, stood together on the edge of oblivion, bound by the silent language of survival and the unbreakable bond of a child's first peace. As the star above flickered faintly, Kaylee whispered, "Thank you." Kaylee's eyes never left the human as he carefully lifted Zaire into his arms. The baby's small chest rose and fell in slow, steady breaths, the silence that had overtaken him a stark contrast to the desperate wailing just moments before. It was as if the infant had found a refuge within the human's presence, a calm that defied all logic and reason. Kaylee felt a strange warmth spread through her chest, a fragile thread of hope weaving its way through the shadow of exhaustion and fear. Here, in the midst of this forsaken world, she had found a protector. Or perhaps, something even more profound. The man's gaze was steady, his eyes a deep, almost unsettling shade of amber that seemed to glow faintly in the planet's dim light. His face bore the marks of countless battle scars etched like the stories of survival across his jawline and forehead, but there was something gentle in the way he looked at the child. His hands cradled Zaire with a tenderness that spoke of empathy, of experience beyond words. Kaylee's voice, hoarse from days of silence, finally found strength as she spoke in the broken common tongue that humans often used in this sector. "Who are you?" Her question was cautious, the wariness of countless betrayals still clinging to her like a second skin. "I'm Elias," he replied, his voice calm but urgent. "A human scavenger. And a mechanic. I've traveled many worlds, but I never imagined I'd find a soul like yours out here." His words carried weight, a promise of aid beyond mere survival. "You and your son are not alone anymore." Kaylee blinked, overwhelmed by the sincerity and gravity in his voice. She glanced down at Zaire, whose eyes now fluttered open, reflecting the strange light of the planet with an eerie clarity. The baby's gaze met Elias's again, unblinking, as if seeking reassurance. In that gaze, Kaylee saw something ancient, an echo of a connection that defied species, culture, and distance. It was the recognition of a protector, a guardian who could shield them from the darkness that threatened to consume them. Elias carefully lifted his cloak, revealing a compact medical kit strapped to his waist. "We need to tend to him quickly," he said. "He's weak, dehydrated. And there's something more. I can feel it." His words hinted at knowledge beyond the medical, a hint of intuition, or even something bordering on the mystical. Kaylee's brow furrowed, curiosity mingling with desperation. "More?" she asked. "The kind of presence that changes fate," Elias said quietly, opening the kit. He pulled out sterile wraps and nutrient gels, hands steady despite the urgency. "This world is harsh, but there's something about your son, something the mercenaries feared. They didn't just want you. They wanted him. For what? I don't yet know." Kaylee's heart clenched. The mercenaries' hunt had been relentless because Zaire was more than a child. He was a symbol, a seed of hope, or perhaps a weapon buried in his very bloodline. She had fled to this forgotten world, hoping to escape their reach, but now it seemed the danger was far from over. As Elias worked, carefully applying nutrient gels and monitoring the infant's vital signs, Kaylee felt her strength returning. The human's presence was a balm to her battered spirit, a tether pulling her back from the brink of despair. She dared to hope not just for survival, but for a future where Zaire could grow beyond the shadows of war and fear. Outside, the cold wind whispered secrets through the ruins, but within the fragile sanctuary of the broken arch, the baby's breathing evened, and the weight of endless nights of crying began to lift. Kaylee looked once more at Elias, a silent question burning in her eyes. "What will we do now?" Elias closed the medical kit, his gaze hardening with resolve. First, we find shelter. Then, answers. And if they come for you again, we fight. Together, under the fading light of the dying star, the unlikely trio alien mother, silent child, and human savior prepared to face whatever the darkness still held. For in that moment, amid ruins and desolation, a new hope was born. Chapter 2. Sanctuary Among Shadows and Stars. The dying light of Viridra IX's twilight faded rapidly, swallowed by the encroaching cold and endless night that blanketed the planet's surface like a suffocating shroud. Kaylee moved slowly, each step heavy with the weight of exhaustion, yet bolstered by a fragile new hope. The infant Zaire was nestled against Elias's chest, swaddled tightly in layers of scavenged cloth, his tiny body now breathing calm and even under the human's protective hold. Elias's silhouette, illuminated faintly by the strange glow of the planet's bioluminescent flora, was an island of warmth and steadfastness in an unforgiving wasteland. The ruins that surrounded them were more than mere stone and rust. They were relics of a forgotten age, remnants of a civilization whose technology had once defied the very laws of physics. In this shattered expanse of monumental arches and half-buried spires, Elias led them toward what he claimed was a safe haven and underground bunker he had discovered during his previous travels, a place untouched by mercenaries and merciless scavengers who prowled the surface in search of survivors and salvage alike. The entrance was cleverly concealed beneath a lattice of shattered stone and creeping vines that pulsed faintly with bioelectric life. Kaylee, despite her weariness, couldn't help but feel a deep awe as they descended the narrow stairwell carved into the rock, the air growing cooler yet strangely purer. The bunker was a relic from the Old Alliance, a coalition of races long dissolved into the chaos of galactic civil wars. Its walls, though aged and scarred, hummed faintly with dormant energy fields, and the air filtration systems, though flickering intermittently, seemed intact. Here, in this forgotten tomb of peace, Kaylee allowed herself the briefest moment of relief. Elias carefully laid Zaire on a bed of padded fabric in a small, dimly lit chamber. He worked quickly, his hands skilled and precise as he prepared nutrient packs and a small medical device designed to monitor vital signs and administer biostimulants. Kaylee watched, fascinated and fearful, as the human's technology began to interface with her son's fragile body. The device emitted soft pulses of blue light, and Zaire's cheeks, previously pale and translucent, began to gain a faint glow, the slow resurgence of life and vigor stirring beneath his delicate skin. "You have a remarkable child," Elias said quietly, glancing at Kaylee. "I can feel an energy within him ancient, powerful. It's no wonder your enemies are desperate to find you both. Whatever his bloodline holds, it's something the galaxy hasn't seen for centuries." Kaylee's eyes darkened with a mixture of pride and fear. She had been told stories of the Dravari's ancient heritage, their connection to a long-lost cosmic force that was said to shape the fate of worlds. If Zaire was truly the last of that line, the stakes of his survival were far greater than she had imagined. Her own escape to Viridra IX had been a gamble, a desperate attempt to hide in a place no one would think to look. But with Elias here, with his knowledge and compassion, perhaps there was a chance not just to survive, but to reclaim a future. As the night deepened outside, the bunker's faint hum became a comforting lullaby. Kaylee found herself drawn to the small observation window overlooking the shattered landscape. Under the star-studded sky, the ruins looked peaceful, almost serene, but she knew better. Danger lurked in every shadow. Mercenaries would not rest, and the Coalition's political games meant that those who sought to claim Zaire's power would stop at nothing. Elias returned to her side, handing over a thin data slate that flickered with encrypted transmissions intercepted from mercenary networks. "They're still searching. Their drones sweep the surface daily, but the bunker's stealth systems mask our presence. For now, we're safe." Kaylee nodded, though anxiety clenched her heart. "How long can we hide?" "As long as we need," Elias replied. "But hiding won't save us forever. We must be proactive. Your son's gift could change the balance of power in the sector. We need allies, and we need a plan." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden soft cry from Zaire's crib. The baby stirred, eyes fluttering open once again, his gaze immediately seeking Elias. The human bent low, whispering soothing words in a gentle tone, words Kaylee did not understand, but which seemed to calm the infant instantly. It was a silent testament to the strange bond growing between them, a bond forged in the crucible of survival and ancient mystery. As the hours passed, Kaylee shared fragments of her story, the political strife that had shattered her world, the betrayal of those she once trusted, and the secret that Zaire carried within his blood. Elias listened intently, piecing together the puzzle of their plight with the patience and care of a seasoned survivor. His own past remained shrouded in shadows, but Kaylee sensed a depth of experience that went beyond mere mechanic or scavenger. They formed an uneasy alliance, united by necessity and the fragile hope of a future yet unwritten. The night stretched on, a tapestry of whispered plans and quiet determination. Outside, the wind howled across the ruins, but within the bunker, a flicker of light persisted, a beacon in the darkness, a promise that even in the cold void of space, life could endure and hope could be born anew. Chapter 3. The Weight of Destiny and the Unseen Enemy. The morning on Viridra, 9 dawned not with the gentle light of a waking world, but with the cold, sterile glow of emergency illumination flickering inside the bunker. Elias had rigged a makeshift power source during the long hours of the night, a fusion of ancient Alliance technology and his own scavenged circuitry that pulsed faintly beneath the walls, keeping the place alive and functional despite the encroaching silence outside. It was a fragile heartbeat in a tomb of forgotten histories, but to Kaylee and her son, it was a lifeline and a sanctuary against the dangers lurking in the starless void beyond. Zaire slept peacefully now, his tiny form cocooned in layers of soft fabric, his chest rising and falling with steady, rhythmic breaths that echoed the slow resurgence of strength. Yet Kaylee's mind churned restlessly, burdened not only by the tangible threats she could see and hear, but by the invisible weight of prophecy and power that seemed to pulse beneath the surface of her child's fragile existence. The Dravari blood that flowed through his veins was not merely a genetic inheritance. It was a legacy of cosmic significance, a spark from an age when the universe itself was young and the boundaries between life, energy, and consciousness were fluid and unfathomable. As she watched over him, Kaylee's thoughts drifted to the mercenaries, the relentless hunters who had torn her life apart and now sought to claim Zaire for their own inscrutable purposes. Their motives were shrouded in shadows, entwined with the tangled politics of distant galactic powers and the dark corridors of covert warfare. They were not merely bounty hunters. They were agents of a deeper menace, an unseen enemy whose reach extended beyond mere greed or survival. To Kaylee, they represented the cold machinery of a universe that sought to crush the flickering light of her son's destiny before it could ignite. Elias moved silently beside her, his presence a steady anchor amid the swirling tides of fear and hope. His expression was somber, a mix of resolve and wary calculation that bespoke the countless battles he had faced not only against the hostile environments of forsaken worlds, but against enemies both known and hidden. Though he spoke little of his past, Kaylee sensed that beneath his rugged exterior lay a mind sharpened by hardship and haunted by memories he kept locked away, like weapons sealed in the vaults of his soul. "We can't stay here forever," Elias finally said, breaking the silence that had stretched between them like a fragile veil. His voice was low but resolute, tinged with the hard-edged pragmatism of a man who knew that sanctuary was temporary and danger relentless. "The mercenaries are tightening their search. They have resources, ships, spies, maybe even traitors. We're shadows beneath their radar now, but sooner or later, they'll bring the full storm down on this place." Kaylee nodded, the gravity of his words settling like cold stone in her chest. "Then what? How do we fight an enemy we cannot see? How do we protect a child who holds the fate of worlds in his blood?" Elias glanced toward the dimly lit terminal embedded in the wall, where holographic star charts and encrypted data flickered like ghostly flames. "We find allies. We gather information. And we prepare. There are those who still remember the old ways, those who revere the ancient legacies your son carries. We need them." The mention of allies stirred a flicker of hope, but also a deep well of uncertainty. Kaylee knew well the fractured nature of the galaxy, where loyalty was a currency as volatile as plasma, and betrayal a constant shadow. Yet, the thought of resistance, of a network bound by conviction and ancient wisdom, rekindled a spark of defiance within her weary heart. Hours bled into days as they fortified the bunker, scavenging supplies from the ruins above and scavenged crates left by long-gone expeditions. Elias's expertise proved invaluable. He repaired old tech, jury-rigged communications, and even fashioned rudimentary defenses. Kaylee, in turn, taught him fragments of Dravari heritage, the language of symbols, the nuances of psychic resonance, the sacred rituals that bound their people to the cosmic flow. Between them, a bridge was forming, a synthesis of cultures, strengths, and wills united by necessity and the fragile hope of salvation. One night, as the twin moons of Viridra, 9 hung low and ghostly in the ink-black sky, a sudden disturbance shattered the bunker's fragile calm. The faint hum of energy fields flickered and faltered, warning lights blinked erratically, and the thick steel doors trembled with the impact of an unseen assault. Elias and Kaylee exchanged alarmed glances. The mercenaries had found them. Frantic alarms echoed through the corridors as the intruders breached the outer perimeter, stealth drones swarming like metallic predators, their sensors probing, weapons primed. But Elias was ready. With practiced hands, he activated the bunker's ancient defense protocols, sending waves of electromagnetic pulses to disrupt the invaders' targeting systems. Kaylee, fueled by maternal instinct and raw determination, prepared to defend her son with every ounce of strength she could muster. In the ensuing chaos, the lines between hunter and hunted blurred into a desperate struggle for survival. The cramped halls echoed with the clash of metal and the pulse of energy weapons. Kaylee moved with fierce agility, using her knowledge of the bunker's labyrinthine passages to evade capture and protect Zaire. Elias's mechanical expertise turned the ancient technology against their attackers, repurposing long-dormant systems to seal passages and trap intruders in cascading force fields. Amidst the turmoil, Kaylee felt a stirring within Zaire, a surge of energy that rippled through the infant's tiny form like a silent storm. His eyes snapped open, glowing with an eerie light that pierced the darkness. For a moment, the mercenaries faltered, their weapons useless against a force they could neither understand nor control. Then, with a cry that was both infantile and infinitely powerful, Zaire unleashed a pulse of pure energy that rippled outward, knocking attackers off their feet and shattering machinery. The bunker trembled as if alive, responding to the presence of a new cosmic force awakened after centuries of slumber. When the dust settled, the attackers retreated into the shadows, broken and baffled by the power they had witnessed. Elias and Kaylee stood breathless, the weight of the moment pressing down upon them. The child they protected was not only a beacon of hope, but a weapon of unimaginable potential, and, with that power came a responsibility far beyond anything they had imagined. As the bunker's lights steadied and silence reclaimed the night, Kaylee held Zaire close, whispering promises of protection and love. Elias, his face etched with awe and resolve, knew that their fight had only just begun. The galaxy was watching, and the future of countless worlds now rested on the fragile shoulders of a human, an alien, and a child whose cries had once echoed endlessly until the moment he saw the human and instantly fell silent. Chapter 4. The Dawn of Reckoning and the Unbreakable Bond. The first light of dawn filtered weakly through the reinforced viewport of the ancient bunker, casting long, fractured shadows across the worn surfaces and flickering consoles. Outside, Viridra, 9 remained a desolate and unforgiving landscape, but within the walls of their fragile refuge, Kaylee, Elias, and the infant Zaire prepared to face the turning point of their journey. The battles, the endless flight, and the whispered promises of salvation had led them here to the precipice of destiny, where the fate of not only their lives, but of countless worlds would be decided. Kaylee stood by the observation window, her eyes scanning the barren horizon with a mixture of dread and determination. The events of the night before had revealed a terrifying truth. Zaire was no ordinary child. The power coursing through his veins was a cosmic force, a living legacy of the Dravari, an echo of ancient entities that once shaped the very fabric of existence. With a quiet fury and profound sadness, Kaylee felt the crushing weight of this inheritance. Her son was the last of a line that could either bring salvation or destruction, and the choices they made in the coming hours would shape the galaxy's future. Beside her, Elias was busy coordinating their limited resources, sending out encrypted messages in hopes of gathering allies. His face, weathered and resolute, betrayed little of the exhaustion gnawing at his spirit. He was a man tempered by loss and hardship, but also a beacon of unwavering resolve. He had become more than a scavenger or mechanic. He was a guardian, a warrior bound to Kaylee and her child by circumstance, and something deeper, an unspoken bond forged in fire and desperation. Zaire lay quietly in his cradle, his eyes closed, but the air around him shimmered faintly with latent energy. Kaylee reached out a trembling hand to touch his forehead, feeling the pulse of life that was both fragile and immense. She whispered words of love and protection, a prayer in the ancient tongue of her people. The baby stirred, his fingers curling around hers with surprising strength, as if sensing the storm gathering beyond the bunker's walls. The mercenaries were coming, no longer shadowy threats, but an advancing army equipped with the ruthless precision of galactic power brokers. Their motives had become clearer. To capture Zaire meant to control the legacy of the Dravari, to wield a power that could shift the balance of control in the sector and beyond. Kaylee and Elias knew that hiding was no longer an option. They had to fight not only for survival, but to awaken the dormant forces that could turn the tide. As preparations for battle intensified, Kaylee recounted the legends of her people, the sacred rituals that bound the Dravari to the cosmic forces, the ancient songs that could awaken slumbering powers, and the hidden sanctuaries scattered across forgotten worlds. These secrets, she hoped, could be their salvation. Elias, ever the pragmatist, combined this ancient knowledge with his own technical genius, crafting devices that could channel and amplify Zaire's energy, turning raw potential into a weapon. When the assault began, it was as if the very air trembled with the clash of wills. The mercenaries struck with ruthless efficiency, their forces sweeping over the landscape like a tidal wave of destruction. But within the bunker, Kaylee and Elias stood united, a fortress of determination. The ancient defense systems roared to life, bolstered by Elias's enhancements and Kaylee's psychic resonance with the child. Zaire's eyes opened wide, glowing with a brilliant light that flooded the chamber. With a cry that echoed like thunder across the stars, he unleashed a pulse of energy so vast and pure that it shattered weapons, disintegrated attackers, and sent shockwaves rippling through the fabric of reality itself. The battlefield outside became a tempest of light and shadow, where the ancient and the modern collided in a symphony of chaos and hope. In the aftermath, as silence settled like a fragile shroud, Kaylee cradled Zaire against her heart, tears flowing freely. Elias looked on, his gaze heavy with pride and unspoken promise. They had survived the storm, but the war was far from over. The galaxy now knew the power that had been awakened, and countless eyes would seek to claim it. Yet amidst the ruins and the uncertain dawn, an unbreakable bond had been forged between alien mother and human protector, between past and future, between a child's silent cry and the hope that had finally found its voice. The story of Kaylee, Elias, and Zaire was only just beginning. The battlefield outside the bunker had settled into an eerie silence, broken only by the distant echoes of retreating engines and the faint crackle of damaged communications. Within the fortified walls, Kaylee stood motionless for a long moment, her heart pounding with the weight of what had just transpired. The child she bore, her son, Zaire, had awakened a power so profound that it bent the very fabric of space and energy around them. It was a force that could either redeem or doom entire worlds, a legacy that had been hidden for millennia, now thrust violently into the chaos of the present. Elias, ever the stalwart guardian, moved beside her with a careful steadiness. His gaze, sharp and calculating, flickered over the array of equipment he had managed to rig from ancient Alliance tech and salvage parts. "They won't stop," he said, his voice a low rumble, heavy with the grim knowledge of the galactic predators who hunted them. "This is only the beginning. Every faction, every power that dreams of control will come. We've made ourselves known." Kaylee nodded, the realization settling coldly in her bones. But beneath that weight, a fierce fire ignited, a determination that no force in the galaxy could extinguish. They had come this far, through betrayal, desperation, and fear, to stand here now, united by something deeper than mere survival. The bond between them, the alien mother, the human protector, and the child of cosmic destiny, had become a beacon that would not be dimmed. She moved to Zyre's side, where the infant slept peacefully now, his body still shimmering faintly with the afterglow of the cosmic energies he had wielded. The bioluminescent veins in his skin pulsed softly, a rhythm like the heartbeat of the universe itself. Kaylee's fingers brushed against his cheek, and in that touch, she felt the promise of a future not yet written, one where her son's power could heal, create, and protect rather than destroy. Elias stepped closer, his hands steady as he activated a communication console, sending out encoded distress signals and calls for aid to distant allies, old friends of the old alliance, scholars of forgotten lore, and rebels who still believed in freedom from the tightening grip of oppressive regimes. His fingers danced over the interface with practiced skill, aware that every message could mean the difference between salvation and oblivion. The hours stretched on as they prepared for what was to come. Kaylee recited the ancient Dravari rites she remembered from her youth, chanting softly as the psychic resonance between her and Zyre grew stronger. Elias worked tirelessly to reinforce their defenses and craft devices to harness and direct the infant's incredible energies safely. Together, they melded ancient wisdom and cutting-edge technology, forging weapons and shields from the marriage of past and future. When the new assault finally arrived, it was not just a battle of firepower, but a war for the soul of the galaxy. Fleets of warships darkened the skies, unleashing cascades of plasma and energy beams, while squads of elite mercenaries stormed the ruins below. But Kaylee, Elias, and Zyre stood as a united front, a living bulwark against the tide. Zyre, though still a child in body, wielded his power with growing awareness and precision. His eyes, now fully open and glowing with an ancient light, pierced through the chaos. The energy he emitted formed shimmering barriers that deflected attacks and unleashed waves of pure cosmic force that disarmed and incapacitated foes without unnecessary cruelty. It was a power tempered by innocence and guided by the fierce love of those who protected him. In the thick of battle, Elias found himself fighting side by side with Kaylee, their movements synchronized despite the gulf of species and origin. Their combined efforts formed a dance of destruction and defense, a testament to the unbreakable bond forged in adversity. They moved not as separate entities, but as extensions of the same will to protect, to endure, and to hope. As the mercenary forces faltered and retreated beneath the relentless counterattack, the tide of the war shifted. Word of the child's power spread through the galactic networks, igniting both fear and reverence. Many sought to ally themselves with the new force rising from the ruins of Viridra 9, while others fled before the dawn of a new era. In the aftermath, as silence once again reclaimed the battered world, Kaylee cradled Zyre in her arms, her tears flowing freely, tears of relief, of love, and of a profound realization that the future was now theirs to shape. Elias stood beside her, a quiet sentinel watching over the fragile peace they had won. The galaxy was vast and filled with unknown dangers, but together, they had ignited a spark of hope that no darkness could extinguish. In the silent cry that had once echoed endlessly across the barren plains, they had found a voice that would resonate across the stars for generations to come. The story of Kaylee, Elias, and Zyre was no longer one of flight or fear. It was the beginning of a legend, a testament to the strength of the human spirit, the resilience of alien bloodlines, and the enduring power of love that transcends all boundaries. And in that dawn, beneath the twin moons of a forgotten world, the future truly began.